Hey, what's up everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so don't really know what I want to talk about at all, but I did want to check in with everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic Friday. TGIF to all. I did a therapy session 2 nights ago, I believe it was, and I left it up for 2 days. I listened to it 3 times after I did it, got some good stuff out of it, in terms of getting things out of my chest and then listening to it and learning from it and absorbing it, feeling it and appreciating it. But as I let it sit, I realized that there was something at the end of the video that I didn't want to sit in infamy forever. I didn't want that out there. And it's a couple things on this channel that I'm pretty sure I'll have to go back and revise as I think back over the years, and things that I may have said that I no longer either agree with, or it wasn't well thought out, or was just simply said in pain. And there's a lot of things that have changed within myself that has to be addressed as well, since I have some newfound understandings about how I want to do things. So with growth comes understanding, and a lot of times your growth is important to capture. You know, even though you've changed, it's good to always keep an account of old ways, so that if they were to reemerge, you will then be able to do what you need to do. You know, that's self-awareness training, I guess is what I call this. I think doing this channel has helped me so much in my interactions with people, in terms of being more patient, in terms of waiting for, you know, just more clarity in regards to what it is that I'm looking to have communicated, or something of that nature. I found myself respecting tone a bit more now that I'm on this path with you guys, trying to just listen to myself and convey my thoughts, and just be mindful of how I come off, more so than I ever had to be beforehand. I think what I learned is what I said I couldn't live with, because I know that it did not explain my exact thought. And what I said was something along the lines of, I'm speaking to basically everyone I've ever known. When I say, you know, I needed help, why didn't you help me? That is not my actual thought. That was pain speaking in the moment of a great self-pity. And to be honest with you, that self-pity is ultimately what put me in a position to not welcome help that was offered to me. So there needs to be some balance to that statement, and I didn't provide it. So that's what I wanted to come here and say. I deleted that video to get that statement out of our lives, and to then admit that I made the statement, and to amend it, so that anybody who saw it doesn't think I'm running from what it is that I said, or don't wish to have it out there. It's not that I don't wish to have it out there, it's that I wish to have it out there in such a way that gives me accountability, and that allows me to respect those who it does not apply to. Because every time I heard myself say that, all I can think about is the specific people that I can think of that doesn't apply to. You feel me? Like, nah, that friend didn't do that. That person never refused me anything. That person, and if they were to hear that, even though I doubt they would, it's a 40-minute video. If they were to hear that, there would be no way for me to effectively have a conversation with them to smooth that over without the damage already being done first. I don't want that, especially when that is not even for them. So it's like, look, I don't want to ostracize every person I've ever known just because I was feeling self-pity in a moment, where really the situation itself wasn't even really based on anything actually real. And that's why the therapy session is so important, because I deal with a lot of internal struggles that often I manifest on my own. Insecurities, different imbalances within myself that as I'm saying, I'm having to unlearn and redo as I grow. And maybe some of these things should have been done sooner, but hey, we work on our own terms. I'm mature as I do. 38 years of age, a lot of things I just didn't give myself an opportunity to experience. So that comes, there a great deal of learning that comes on the fly, and it's going to make it so that I have to either stand on things that I don't mean, or get right about those things, and do what I'm trying to do now. So I don't think everybody does I don't believe everyone should have helped me, or it was anyone's responsibility other than my parents to get me help, or anyone other than myself as I grew older to help myself. So that's what I want to say. In the moment of self-pity, it would have been a great deal of support to me if others would have had me in mind and got me some help, but it also would have been a great deal of support to me if Publishers Clearinghouse would have showed up at our door when I was 10 and dropped off $50 million. So there's a lot of different things that could have benefited you that didn't come your way, and none of them were meant for you. And that is the balance of the statement. Nobody kept anything from me. A lot of stuff that I was doing, I kept myself from others, and therefore they weren't able to give me what it is that I ultimately would have wanted. So whatever was wrong, it started with this thing here. And when there's no one to blame for this thing here other than self, and the issue itself is anxiety and whatever it is that is unexplainable and uncontrollable, or so to speak, then there's no one to blame, and you want to blame others. But that's not the actual feeling. The feeling is, I wish I had some help. No one knew how to help me, and I didn't know how to welcome it, and that's just what it is. Period. That is how that went. I wanted some of the people in my life to take the initiative, but I know that a lot of the people in my life tried, and in the moment I wasn't thinking that. You know what I mean? Like, people tried the best way they knew how. And so as an overthinker and a creative, a lot of times things that I want people to do, it's not in their head. And because my brain works this way, and it's the only brain I'm hearing all day long, you tend to think that what your brain does is what everybody's brain does, or what you have on your mind may be what other people have on their minds, or that the intensity you feel something may be the same. And that's obviously something that will not be the case each and every time. So I got off on a tangent. All of that I wanted to say is I don't like the reality of my situations as it pertains to not being able to effectively place blame. And I think when I try to find solutions for my circumstances, I realize that there's no one to blame, and I don't like that. I like having peace. I think that's what the situation that video was ultimately about was all about. The fact that I felt in my personal relationships with the people that were interacting with me, and I wasn't able to effectively get the communication I was looking for from them. And it was a misunderstanding as to how that was going, whether or not I was being refused that, or whether or not it was just simple miscommunication and someone had yet to be able to address some of the things that were said. It was the latter. I wasn't certain when I was speaking. I've gotten clarity since, and it also contributed to why I felt it was important to get that video up out of there, because I said some things that contributed to the understanding that wasn't an understanding at all. It was a misunderstanding, and as I got that clarity, it changed my opinion. Now, for those who watch the video, there's still aspects of my situation that I don't have any clarity on. But the only one that I was really hanging my feelings on was the notion that she wasn't willing to speak. Like, don't leave this brain of mine without something to hang its hat on. Because essentially I have to fill in those blanks, and usually with the brain that I have, those blanks become extreme, unrealistic, very in nature. It becomes a big jambalaya of what ifs. And for me, I can take it all the way to the aliens and Soviet Union. Like, I'm ridiculous. You know what I mean? The brain is stupid. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It will continue to manifest uncontrollably without something to actually focus on. So that's what a wildly creative mind does, especially when it has some of the issues that I've had, insecurities and imbalances with my defensive mechanisms, trying to effectively override those so that I can maneuver properly in this world and get around all these fear indicators and anxiety indicators that just are just flat out malfunctioning, have malfunctioned within my head over years. At least that's how I perceive it. So it's like constantly working against myself. Throughout that whole scenario, there was a misunderstanding and blanks on top of those misunderstandings and misreadings in terms of what I'm seeing. I'm misinterpreting words as I read them in the presence of feelings that were built upon insecurities that were built. You see what I'm saying? It's like a lot of overthinking, overcompensating for those anxieties that affect my behavior also, which was needed to be said for context. There was a way for me to get what it is that I was looking for, that I was effectively avoiding for reasons that were not clear to me, just like everything else that I try to avoid for anxiety purposes. I hadn't thought it out. I just knew I didn't want to do it. In this case, it was I didn't want to type out what it was that I wanted to say, even though I knew that if she were able to lay eyes on it, it would have been easier for interpreting, right? And I'm sure some of you guys probably already picked up on that, but that's the struggle I go through. You know, it's always some type of overcompensation for some irrational anxiety. So it's like, for example, I once sent flowers to a girl at my job, ill-advised, because I wanted to make up for the fact that I didn't speak to her when I had an opportunity to do so. Had I spoken to her, I would have never made that bad decision. It wouldn't have cost me all the things that it cost me, but I was working around my anxiety. I knew at the time that it was a bad idea, but that's how irrational the behavior was in terms of protecting myself from those feelings. So as I maneuver and I look back on the past situations that I have, I'm realizing that I've done that in a multitude of circumstances, in various different ways. Just effectively protecting myself from different anxieties, even if it meant making me look absolutely and utterly irrational, insane, unprepared, or what have you. As long as it protected me from specific stress, I don't care what happens otherwise. I can look stupid, I can look embarrassed, I can get fired, like all those different things, so long as I don't face the fear that I'm running from. So in this case, it was probably the truth. Even though I'm demanding that I get the truth from her, I was probably afraid of it. So my thing was, I'm going to effectively communicate around a direct communication and then blame her for not catching that direct communication. That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. And I didn't realize it that way because I'm still looking at it as if I didn't do that. Now I'm looking at it as if, okay, she needs to communicate with me because I've sent VMs, voice messages. So these voice messages need to be heard. And then in my mind, I'm like, they need to be heard now. She don't have time to do that. She's living her life. She's out and about. She's running around. So in my little self-loathing moment, feeling all, entitled to this, her time and her, feeling entitled to her conversation, I guess, the clarity from my mind or whatever, I'm not realizing in that moment, that there's a simple solution. Actually call, pick up the phone, dial her number, wait for it to ring enough times, and then leave a message stating, hey, when you have some time, can we speak about something? That is what I didn't do. That would have effectively disarmed any chances of miscommunication or any chances of me not getting to her in such a way that allows her to effectively know that I would like to speak. Okay, so I left room for her not to see that stuff, and because of it, it was possible she didn't, and she didn't. But I wasn't sure if she hadn't, and therefore the confusion then ensued. So I know that it was all me. I know I manifested that in my head. I know this is a byproduct of the things within myself that need to change now. All of it. And because of it, even though now I wish I didn't delete the video, so now you have more context to what the hell I'm talking about. But I felt like it was very important to readdress it for those 6 people who watched it. Very important for them to understand how I feel about what it is I said, even though they're the only ones who saw it, because I know that I'm in a space where I'm still not yet fully grasping what all there is to understand about my very own struggles. How much of it's my fault, how much of it I can change, why I did certain things, and ultimately how I can keep from seeing certain consequences again. And to not be as critical of myself for some of these decisions as I look back on them and realize that I was in fact overcompensating for the fears that I otherwise didn't want to face. So looking at some of the decisions over the years, just like I was effectively communicating around her, I was effectively skating around that point in regards to myself. I could see around it, but I couldn't see it as it is. So that's why I love this channel. That's why I like doing what it is I'm doing with these therapy sessions, because it will, in fact, capture certain growth moments in real time to where you will see yourself and you won't have any choice but to see yourself. And so that's what I ultimately understand. I learned a long time ago that, in fact, watching Big Brother as a young kid, that show that used to be on, I think it was ABC or CBS. I don't remember, forget it, but it might still be on. But watching them, listening to people who would be on the show, and then after they go off the show, they say, yo, watching myself helped me realize where I need to change the person. And then seeing the change in those people as the seasons, progress when they come back. I'm not this guy anymore. The guy I was, I hated myself there. Thank you so much for letting me see myself. So it's like, I realized in that moment, that's what I needed. And I consider myself to be a self-aware person, but certain tendencies, certain tones, certain things, how you speak and all this different stuff, how you come off, you're not going to know until you see yourself enough times. You know what I mean? And now I've done this so many times, I've seen myself enough times till I know exactly how I tend to come off with different feelings, different emotions, different moods. And those are things you just cannot see if you don't have a reflection of yourself looking back at you in a real way. So I want to encourage everybody to get a chance, especially if you want to learn more about what's going on inside of yourself, to get a chance to look at yourself in this way. Maybe not necessarily share as much as I have, but do something like this for yourself so you can see yourself and see how you come off in various moods. Because I didn't, I would have never known how I was coming off in that, looking at that video until listening to it. I'm like, and then the funny thing is experiencing yourself 3 times in a row and having taken different things from it each time. That's really something that taught me something, having that experience happen so many times. So yeah, man, it's helping me. It's making me a more poised person. I handled all of this very, very well in terms of her. Even though I was wigging out, being irrational, being entitled, being whatever, all these bad, different, immature ass feelings that I was feeling. Even though all of that was the case, I stayed in my mindset in terms of praying. I stayed in my mindset in terms of understanding that my mind be wigging out and that half of this stuff is me, if not most of it, or all of it. And then from there, I took myself into a space where, I got my mind right. I did what I do spiritually to effectively acknowledge all of the feelings that I had, acknowledge all of the pain that I felt that might have led up to the ways that I was behaving, and acknowledging maybe all of the different things that I did that ruined various situations that I wish were not ruined, various things that I needed to do in the moment that more or less gave me the understanding that I needed to simply call the woman. Like literally. It took a great deal of meditation for me to realize that I wasn't directly communicating and that I was upset about her not directly communicating. Like it took deep meditation for me to see that. And so because I meditated throughout this entire process, because I stayed progressive in terms of doing art, in terms of working out, instead of during this process feeling like laying down, like my natural inclination when I feel triggered into a depression, I felt like this was another one of those moments where if this had happened any other time in my life, it would have triggered a depression, because it really doesn't take anything at all from me in that way. But I fought it with all of these practices, the art and everything. I fought it. Everything that I did, as I told you guys in the video leading up to my birthday, I'm going to approach it the same way. Art, wedding cake, and meditation. Everything's going to get, if it's a great situation, it's going to get approached that way. If we're celebrating here, it's going to get approached that way. If we're in pain over here and we're sad, we're going to do that because that's what works for me, no matter what, in terms of managing my mind. Some of those bad feelings I was having when I was going through all the worst of it, I was doing art while I was over there wigging out, talking to myself like a dang crazy person. But I was doing art instead of effectively laying down, giving her that energy, reaching out like a stupid, crazy, imbalanced person or any of that. I kept to myself. I dealt with myself. I did what I needed to do to assure that whatever was inside of me found itself onto a physical paper, something that I could leave it on. And then in those moments, as I went through my progressions, feeling all that stuff, I started to rationalize it. Before the end of the piece, my energy had changed. Do you understand? That's what it ends up doing. That's what I never would have realized. There were some bad feelings that you're feeling. By the time you're done with whatever you're doing and letting it out, you're gonna feel differently. You're gonna come to some other conclusion. It's like a meditative space as you're doing that art. You're gonna come to a different conclusion. You're gonna see something you didn't see. That's what happened to me. I misinterpreted some words that she had said. Couldn't see it. But when I was doing art, I was like, that doesn't say that. It says this. And I'm like, oh, and it's like, but it was that practice, it was that outlet, it was that calming moment, it was that silence, it was the creative up, down, left, different color, like all of those different progressions that ultimately make your mind leave those anger spaces. I'm so mad, 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 blue. I'm so angry, 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 orange. I'm so mad, mad, mad. Let's do a curve here. And it's going to take your mind literally out of those spaces. And so that's what I'm trying to express to people. Like, look, you need to find them outlets, man, because I'm telling you exactly what it's doing for me. The very progression of falling into depression and not having an outlet and getting heavier and eating bad and all these different things. All I need is markers, pen, a little bit of my favorite weed, and I'm good. I'm good. Everything else is just me wigging out. But while I'm doing something productive. Same wigging, same bad, dumb thoughts, irrational, whatever it is. But I'm doing something that works while it's happening. And so that's what I'm going to encourage everybody to do, man. It's changed my life. It's changed my life. It's made me a better communicator. It made me wait a little better, have more patience, right? It put me in a position to where I could see that I was interpreting something wrong, as to where 9 out of 10 times with that energy, you're going to take that to somebody, start an argument, and never see your own wrong. You'll never see it. This was effectively able to keep me from even letting her feel any of that bull crap that I had going on in me, and then letting me sort it out. And by the time I addressed her again, I was so at peace. I had prayed. I had made pieces. I had different things that I had gone through, different progressions, wild thoughts that I was mad about that I ended up debunking after a while. So many different progressions before actually providing her my spirit. And that is why it's so important for these outlets and these various things, because you want as many breaks as possible between you and that conflict. Breaks meaning stop here, stop here, stop here, stop here, stop here before you get there. That way, in every stop, you have had some type of progression to make you think about what's about to happen, to make you think about what you're about to say, to make you think about what happens if you act irrationally, to make you think about what happens if you happen to see red next. All of these different things that happen in the moment when we impulsively go towards certain things. You want as many halts as possible between you and that conflict, especially if you haven't processed yet, if you haven't seen all the angles yet, if you haven't looked inward and find out what it is you're doing as a contributing to the overall environment of the circumstance. Did you call directly? Did you only leave voice messages? Did you effectively communicate in a way that can get you what you want? If no, then obviously you need as many halts as possible. You need as many times you can stop yourself before you get over there and say something you don't mean, do something that's going to make the situation worse, or ultimately become a problem in real life, as opposed to you just manifesting a problem in your own mind. And so that's what I did. Yes, man, I am effectively a mental person who is trying to heal himself by himself, and it's working. It's working. I'm talking about prayer, meditation, outlets, communication, and ultimately self-love and submission to something better and bigger, badder than yourself. You know what I mean? You gotta believe something's greater than you, because that submission will ultimately allow you to live in a space where you don't need to see everything. That's what it does. That's the confidence of believing in God. I don't need to be on top of everything. I don't have to be. Some stuff can just be unanswered questions. Some stuff can just be out of my control. Some stuff can be, it's too much for me. Some stuff can be, I don't even have to look over there, even though the world's telling me I do, because I believe in something that gives me the leverage not to have to. And because of it, I'm gonna go on a path that y'all not going to, even though everybody and everything is headed that way. God gives me the ability and mental leverage to think freely. So that's what I want to share with you guys, man. That is the moral of the story. On cue, that young lady just hit me up with a TGIF. That is exactly what you just saw on that thing. So of course I'll respond. And I just want you guys to understand, and I'm sure you guys understand this by now, I don't think I have it all together. I don't think my behavior is where it needs to be for me to be in a happy, healthy relationship yet. I don't believe I'm anywhere close to that, unfortunately. So I don't expect that anybody deserves, or the word would be, is supposed to, or is I am entitled to their time, their space, their money, their body, and none of that. Okay? When I was wigging out, I was talking on some entitled bullcrap, stuff that I needed to keep in my situation, not bring that energy to her, you, this channel, or anything else. The weakness of the man. And that is what we're trying to work out. We ain't going to accept those weaknesses. We're not going to accept those imbalances. We're not going to sit here and let our ego keep us in a space where we can't grow. We're not going to sit here and allow other people's opinions of how weak we look or may feel to them keep us from displaying the strength that allows us to be vulnerable in circumstances that otherwise need us to be in order to be examples of how to overcome certain circumstances. I will be that person for myself and for you. Because at the end of the day, it ain't going to matter about all that other stuff, views, and all these different things. It's about what you learned and how you were able to effectively prove what you learned to others. And in this way, I'm trying to just show y'all this aspect of it. So, yeah, man, some of us really do be wigging out, but it's how we govern ourselves when we do. It's how we allow ourselves to submit to something greater than ourselves so that we can allow ourselves to be wrong and allow our energy to be better in the understanding that we could be wrong. And so that's what also not being a God allows me to be, not having that in my mind that I'm some greater thing than I am. It allows me to effectively sit in a space where I just can take a L and feel lesser and not let it control my next move, because it's like, okay, God got me. I took an L, cool. Let's see what else he has. I learned from that. Let's see what else he has. But if you're the God in your mind, you effectively have to win. You have, like, it's almost like blasphemous for you to ever take an L. It messes with your ego, messes with your mind, stumps your growth. So I always say, man, I don't want to be a God. I do not. I want to be a human because I have to be a human and I need to work my progressions. Gods don't. So that's the moral of the story, y'all. I ain't perfect. And because of it, I'm trying to get better. So I hope you guys can take from that what you will. I hope that I was able to effectively offset some of that energy that I put in 102 with a brand new 102. And that's what this is, BDF 44. Thank you all for watching. I'm out.